6 years of silence. Then one morning, I picked up my phone with a cup of coffee in my hand, opened my email, and saw his name sitting right there in my inbox like a ghost that refused to stay buried. The man I had loved completely, trusted absolutely, and caught in a hotel room with my own sister. He wasn't emailing to explain. He wasn't emailing to apologize on principle. He was emailing because his life had collapsed, and somewhere in that wreckage, he had decided that I was his way out. He was wrong. But I am so glad he sent that email, because it told me everything I needed to know about how karma works when you just get out of its way and let it do its job. I want to take you back to the beginning, because this story doesn't make sense without it. And honestly, the beginning is the part that still makes my chest tight when I think about it. Not from grief anymore, but from sheer disbelief at how blind I was. I met Daniel when I was 26. He was charming in that effortless way that feels like a gift when you're young and doesn't feel like a warning sign until much later. We dated for 2 years, got engaged, and got married in a small outdoor ceremony that I had planned for almost a year. My family was there, and my sister, Kara, who was my maid of honor. Kara was 7 years younger than me. At the time of our wedding, she was barely 20. I had practically helped raise her. I had driven her to school events, helped her with college applications, defended her to our parents when she made mistakes. She was my little sister. I loved her the way you love someone you've watched grow up. For 5 years, I thought I had a good marriage. I thought I had a loyal husband and a close family. I was working hard, building my career in marketing, and Daniel was working in finance. We had a shared apartment, shared friends, shared dinners with my family on holidays. Everything looked right from the outside. Everything looked right from the inside, too. That's what makes betrayal this particular flavor of devastating. It doesn't announce itself. It just lives quietly inside your life until the moment it doesn't have to hide anymore. The moment it stopped hiding for me was a Tuesday afternoon in October. Daniel had told me he was going to a work conference 2 hours away and would be back Thursday. I had no reason to doubt that. He had gone to work conferences before. But a friend of mine, a woman I'd known since college, texted me that afternoon because she had seen a man who looked exactly like Daniel checking into a hotel in the city, not 2 hours away, the same hotel where Kara had mentioned, just days before, that she was meeting a friend for drinks. I drove there. I don't entirely know what I expected to find. Part of me was already hoping for a reasonable explanation. Part of me already knew there wasn't one. I talked my way up to the right floor by telling the front desk I was a guest's wife and there had been a family emergency. They were more helpful than they should have been. And when I knocked on the door of room 412, it was Kara who opened it. She was wearing one of the hotel robes. Daniel was sitting on the bed behind her. I didn't scream. I just stood there in that hallway for what felt like a full minute, looking at the two people I had trusted most in my adult life. And I felt something inside me go very, very quiet. Like the moment before a decision gets made. I left without saying a word. I called a divorce attorney the next morning. What followed was ugly in the way these things always are. Daniel came home that night and tried to frame it as something that had just happened, as if feelings in hotel rooms book themselves. Kara called me crying, saying she was sorry, saying she hadn't meant for it to go this far. My parents, when I told them, did something I will never fully forgive. They asked me to consider keeping the peace. They said Kara was young. They said Daniel had made a mistake. They looked at me, the one who had been betrayed, and asked me to be the bigger person so that the family wouldn't fall apart. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just losing a husband and a sister. I was losing a family that had never fully been in my corner to begin with. And so I made a decision that felt radical at the time, but now feels like the most obvious thing I have ever done. I walked away from all of it. I filed for divorce. I cut contact with Kara entirely. I created distance from my parents that has never fully closed. And I started over. Now here is where most people expect the story of rebuilding to be some kind of inspirational montage. And in some ways it was. But I want to be honest about what it actually looked like. because I think the honest version matters more. The first year after the divorce was genuinely hard. I was 32 years old, starting over, and I was angry in a way I hadn't expected. Not just at Daniel and Kara, at the years I had spent building a life around people who didn't deserve the foundation I gave them. I saw a therapist. I leaned on a small group of real friends. I moved into a smaller apartment and I spent a lot of evenings alone, which sounds sad, but was actually where a lot of the rebuilding happened. You can't figure out who you are when you're constantly performing for other people. Professionally, I threw myself into my work. I had always been good at marketing, but I had been playing it safe, staying in a comfortable mid-level role, not pushing for more because I had been prioritizing stability in my marriage. Once the marriage was gone, the stability I had been protecting no longer existed. So I took risks. I pitched for a senior director position at a larger firm. I started consulting on the side for small businesses and found that I was genuinely good at it. By the end of year 2, I had doubled my income. By year 3, I had started my own boutique marketing agency with 2 partners. I also started dating again, slowly and carefully. I was not in a rush. I had learned what happens when you build your life around someone before you've built yourself first. I wasn't going to make that mistake again, but I did eventually meet someone. A man named Marcus, who was steady and kind and genuinely interested in who I actually was. We took things slowly. By year 5 after the divorce, we were living together. By the time year 6 rolled around, we were engaged. And that brings us back to the email. I almost didn't read it. I saw Daniel's name, and my first instinct was to delete it without opening it. But something made me pause. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the part of me that had spent 6 years wondering, in the back of my mind, what had happened to him and Kara. Several paragraphs. And the tone of it was something I had never heard from Daniel in all the years I knew him. Desperate. Genuinely, unguardedly desperate. He started by saying he knew he had no right to contact me. He said he had thought about reaching out many times over the years, but hadn't been able to bring himself to do it. He said he was reaching out now because things had gotten bad. He and Kara had stayed together after the divorce. They had moved in together almost immediately. And according to his email, what had started as a passionate secret had turned into something neither of them had expected. A relationship built on 2 people who were, at their core, not good for each other. He described years of fighting, financial stress. Apparently, Kara had never held a stable job, something I could have told him if he had ever thought to ask. He said she was impulsive with money, and that they had accumulated significant debt. He said the relationship had become toxic in ways he couldn't fully describe in an email. He said he had been thinking about me. He said he had made the worst mistake of his life. He said he missed what we had. He asked, and I want to be precise about this, he asked if there was any possibility, any chance at all, that I would be willing to speak with him. I read the whole thing. I read it twice, and then I sat with it for a moment and noticed what I was feeling, which was not what I might have expected to feel 6 years earlier. I wasn't even particularly satisfied in the way I might have imagined being satisfied by this kind of message. What I felt was something closer to clarity, the kind of clarity you get when a story finally reaches its natural end and you can see the whole shape of it. Daniel had spent 6 years getting exactly what he had chosen. He had chosen Kara over a stable, loving marriage. He had chosen the excitement of a secret affair over a partner who was genuinely invested in building a life with him. And Kara had chosen to pursue a relationship with a man she knew was married to her own sister, and had continued that choice for years. They had built something together. And what they had built was exactly what you would expect 2 people with that foundation to build. Something unstable, something expensive, something exhausting. Meanwhile, I had built something too. I had built it quietly, without an audience, without anyone cheering me on. I had built a career I was proud of. I had built a company. I had built a relationship with a man who respected me. I had built a life that was genuinely mine in a way my old life never quite was. And I had done all of that while Daniel and Kara were busy dismantling each other. I thought about what to write back. I thought about it for a full day. I considered being kind. I considered being cold. I considered a long, detailed response that laid out everything I had built and everything he had thrown away. And then I decided that none of those responses were the right one. Because here's what I had learned in 6 years of rebuilding. The people who underestimate you, who betray you and assume you will simply fold, do not deserve your energy, not your forgiveness speech, not your closure. They deserve your silence. Because your silence, when your life is full and your future is bright, is the loudest possible answer. I did not write back. I marked the email and I moved on with my day. I had a call with a client that afternoon. I had dinner with Marcus that evening. We talked about wedding venues. We laughed about something I can't even remember now. And Daniel's email sat in my inbox, unanswered, which is exactly where it belonged. A few weeks later, he sent a second email. Shorter this time. He said he understood if I didn't want to respond. He said he just wanted me to know that he was sorry, that he had been sorry for a long time, that he hoped I was well. I read it. I didn't respond to that one either. Sometime after that, I heard through a distant mutual contact that Daniel and Kara had broken up, that they had split their shared apartment and were dealing with the financial fallout of years of poor decisions. I don't know the details, and I didn't ask for them. What I know is that the information landed in my brain and produced almost nothing. Not satisfaction. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the story had ended the way it was always going to end. I want to talk about something that I think gets lost in stories like this, because everyone focuses on the betrayal and the revenge and the karma, and those things are real. But what I think matters more is the part in the middle. The part where you have to decide what kind of person you're going to be when everything you built has been knocked down. When I drove away from that hotel 6 years ago, I was devastated. I was humiliated. And I was terrified because I had organized so much of my identity around being a wife, a sister, a daughter, a good family member, and all of those roles had just been ripped away from me in a single afternoon. I didn't know who I was without them. But here is what I found out. I was someone who could survive that. I was someone who could take a life that had been dismantled and rebuild it into something better. Not because I was lucky, not because things magically fell into place, but because I made choices every single day to move forward instead of staying in the wreckage. I chose to get therapy instead of staying bitter. I chose to take professional risks instead of staying small. I chose to open my heart again instead of closing it permanently. Those choices were hard. Some of them were terrifying, but they compounded over time in the way that good choices do. Daniel looked at me the day I left that hotel, and I am absolutely certain, that he thought I would not be okay. That I was the one who had lost. That he and Kara had chosen each other, and I was the casualty. He underestimated me in the most fundamental way a person can underestimate another person. He assumed that my value was tied to him. That without him, I was less. 6 years later, he was sitting somewhere writing a desperate email to the woman he had thrown away, asking her to save him from the consequences of his own choices. And I was planning my wedding to a man who had never once made me feel like a consolation prize. I think about what I would say to my 32-year-old self, standing in that hotel hallway, looking at the two people who had just changed everything. I would tell her, you are going to be okay. You are going to build something so much better than what just fell apart. And the people who did this to you are going to build something too, and it is going to be a monument to every bad choice they made together. I don't hate Daniel. I don't hate Kara. Hate requires energy, and I have spent 6 years investing my energy in things that actually return something. What I feel toward both of them now is something more like indifference, which I have come to believe is the truest form of moving on. When someone no longer has the power to make you feel anything, not anger, not grief, not satisfaction at their failure, that is when you know you are actually free. Marcus and I got married last spring. Small ceremony, close friends, no drama. My relationship with my parents is complicated, and probably always will be, but I have learned to hold that with open hands instead of a clenched fist. I run my agency with a team I am genuinely proud of. I wake up most mornings feeling like my life belongs to me. And Daniel's emails sit in a folder I never open, unanswered and unremarkable, which is exactly the amount of space they deserve in a life as full as mine has become. If you are somewhere in the middle of your own version of this story, if you are standing in the wreckage of something that someone else destroyed and wondering how you are going to get from here to okay, I want you to hear this. The people who betray you are counting on you to stay small. They are counting on the devastation to define you. The most powerful thing you can do is refuse. Not dramatically. Just quietly, consistently, every single day, choose to build something better. Let them watch. It genuinely does not matter. Because the life you build is not for them. It was never for them. And when it is finally, fully yours, nothing they could ever say or email or ask for will touch it. That is the whole story. And honestly, that is enough.